Imagine a plant so powerful, it pulls nutrients from 10 feet beneath your feet, grows up to 100 tons of biomass per acre, and turns itself into fertilizer every month, at zero cost forever. Decades ago, scientists claimed this could end our dependence on chemical fertilizers. So why did agriculture abandon this secret engine of endless abundance? The answer isn't just about safety fears or industry pressure. It's about what happens when profit collides with a plant designed to give everything away. This is where our story and the mystery of its disappearance begins. Bocking 14. Comfrey isn't just another green patch in the garden. It's a living engine. Each spring, its leaves surge upward, thick and broad, fueled by a taproot that plunges 6 to 10 feet into the earth. While most crops scratch at the surface for nutrients, this plant drills down, reaching mineral veins untouched by shallow roots. Potassium, calcium, nitrogen, and phosphorus are drawn up from deep subsoil, loaded into every leaf. This is a plant built for abundance. Once established, Bocking 14 can be cut to the ground 4 to 5 times a season. Wait just 4 weeks after a harvest, and the patch is lush again, ready for another round. Over a single growing season, an acre can yield up to 100 tons of leafy biomass, more than almost any other field crop. That's not a typo or a theoretical maximum. British trials in the 1960s and 70s measured it year after year, even on poor soils. Every cut leaf is a concentrated package of nutrients. The numbers are staggering: 2 to 3% nitrogen, up to 7% potassium, far outpacing traditional farmyard manure. Lay these leaves down as mulch, and they vanish into the soil in just 2 days. The low fiber content means rapid breakdown, releasing their mineral cargo almost instantly. Where other green manures take weeks to decompose, Comfrey leaf mulch transforms into a black, earthy layer in under 48 hours. The cycle repeats, harvest after harvest. No annual replanting, no fertilizer input, no tilling. Each plant comes back stronger, its root system tunneling deeper, breaking up clay and improving drainage. Over 20 years, a single Comfrey patch can turn neglected ground into rich, living soil. This isn't just a plant, it's a self-renewing nutrient mine. Its taproot acts as a living drill, pulling up reserves that would otherwise stay locked far below the reach of vegetables and grains. The leaves, cut and dropped, act as a conveyor belt, cycling those minerals to the surface again and again. For anyone chasing true closed-loop fertility, Comfrey offers a blueprint that's hard to match. But a plant this powerful doesn't spread itself by seed. Bocking 14 is a sterile hybrid, bred to stay put, no invasiveness, no weedy takeover. It's all about controlled abundance, waiting for a gardener's hand to unlock its full potential. The only thing missing is someone willing to harness it. That's where the story of Comfrey's unlikely champion begins. Lawrence D. Hills did not look like a revolutionary. In 1954, he was a young British horticulturalist with a head full of post-war anxieties, empty shelves, tired soil, and a sense that the world's food supply was always one bad season from disaster. He saw something in Comfrey that others missed, a plant that could turn barren ground into a cornucopia, if only someone could tame it. That year, Hills founded the Henry Doubleday Research Association, or HDRA, in a rented cottage in Bocking, Essex. The mission was simple but radical: prove, with hard numbers and field trials, that Comfrey could feed people and livestock without chemicals or imported manure. The challenge was as much about control as abundance. Wild Comfrey was infamous for spreading by seed, invading fields and hedgerows. Hills knew that no farmer would trust a plant that could take over the land. So he set out to create a version that would stay put, a Comfrey that could be managed, not feared. Over the next several years, he gathered Comfrey strains from across Britain, digging up roots from old orchards and abandoned farms. By 1958, he had secured a 3/4-acre plot in Bocking, paying just £10 a year in rent, and began growing out 21 different varieties side by side. The work was slow, muddy, and often lonely. Hills lived near the trial site, tending rows of Comfrey through rain and drought, recording every scrap of data. He crossbred Russian Comfrey, known for its vigor, with common comfrey, searching for a plant that would not set seed. It took years of propagation and ruthless selection. By the early 1960s, one strain stood out, Bocking 14. It was sterile, producing no viable seeds, and it showed a stubborn resistance to rust and disease. Most importantly, it delivered the highest nutrient content, especially potassium, of any variety tested. Hill's notebooks filled with yield charts and mineral analyses. He tracked regrowth rates, cut weights, and the effect of different soils. Early HDRA members, most of them ordinary gardeners, donated pennies and pounds to keep the trials going. Some sent letters describing their own comfrey experiments, echoing Hill's conviction that we should all grow it, however little. By the mid-1960s, Bocking 14 was ready for the wider world. Hills did not patent his discovery or guard it as a trade secret. Instead, he mailed root cuttings to anyone who asked, gardeners, smallholders, even overseas experimenters hoping to revive depleted soils. The HDRA's Comfrey trials became a quiet beacon for the organic movement. Hill's work was not about theory, it was about proof. He wanted to show that a farmer armed with nothing but a spade and a patch of ground could unlock fertility that rivaled the best manure without risking a weed explosion. Bocking 14 was the answer, a plant that stayed where you put it, multiplied only by root division, and delivered a steady harvest of nutrient-rich leaves year after year. For Hills, this was not just a botanical breakthrough, it was a blueprint for resilience, a way to feed the world from the ground up, one root at a time. Lab analysis leaves no room for doubt. Comfrey's numbers are off the charts. Fresh Bocking 14 leaves test at 2 to 3% nitrogen, around 1% phosphorus, and a potassium range that climbs as high as 7%. That last figure, potassium, is what makes Comfrey a standout. For fruiting plants, potassium is the key to bigger, sweeter harvests, and Comfrey delivers more of it than almost any manure or green crop. Side by side, farmyard manure rarely breaks 1.5% potassium, while Comfrey leaves can quadruple that. But it's not just about the NPK. Comfrey's low fiber content means those nutrients are unlocked almost instantly. Toss a pile of leaves onto a compost heap, and within hours, the pile heats up, sometimes by 10, even 15 degrees. Microbes swarm the fresh green tissue, breaking it down so fast that even a stalled cold compost heap can spring back to life. Gardeners call Comfrey the compost activator for a reason. Where straw or grass clippings might take weeks to decompose, Comfrey's soft, protein-rich leaves are gone in days, feeding the soil and every organism in it. Liquid feeds tell the same story. Steep Comfrey leaves in water and you get a dark, pungent brew. Comfrey tea, richer in potassium than many commercial tomato fertilizers. Tests show a typical batch contains about 2% nitrogen, 1% phosphorus, and 3% potassium, matching or beating the synthetic blue crystals sold in garden centers. The difference? Comfrey tea is brewed from a plant you cut for free, not a bag you buy again and again. Every metric, every trial, every bucket of rotting leaves points the same way. Comfrey doesn't just compete with chemical fertilizers, it outpaces them in the nutrients that matter most for food crops. That's a fact the fertilizer industry couldn't ignore. Mid-century agriculture was swept by a new promise, the factory-made shortcut. Synthetic fertilizers arrived in bright bags, stamped with numbers and claims of effortless bounty. The message was everywhere, on billboards, in glossy magazines, even in government pamphlets. Nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium measured out to the gram, ready to be sprinkled in minutes. No digging, no hauling, no waiting for leaves to rot. In the time it took to sharpen a sickle, a gardener could be done feeding an entire row with a scoop of blue powder. The numbers told their own story. The Haber-Bosch process, invented in the early 20th century, could turn air into ammonia on an industrial scale at a massive energy cost, but with yields that promised to feed millions. By the 1960s, this chemistry was packaged as convenience itself. Extension offices and trade groups hammered home the difference. Why spend an hour cutting and carrying Comfrey when you could finish fertilizing in 5 minutes with a synthetic blend? The math was simple, and it favored the bag. Industry ads leaned hard into this contrast. They painted a future where farming means less sweat, more certainty, and no surprises from the weather or the weeds. Clean hands, clean boots, and predictable results. This was the new dream. The labor of managing a living fertility plant with its cycles and quirks was quietly recast as old-fashioned and inefficient. In the background, Comfrey and its champions found themselves boxed out of the mainstream, not by a direct attack, but by the relentless drumbeat of progress and ease. The story of farming was being rewritten, and in that new chapter there was little room for a deep-rooted perennial that demanded a gardener's touch. In 2001, the FDA drew a hard line. Comfrey supplements were pulled from shelves, flagged for containing pyrrolizidine alkaloids, compounds linked to liver damage if swallowed. The agency's warnings targeted teas, capsules, and tonics, not the plant in the ground or its use as mulch. But the headlines didn't make that distinction. Comfrey's name landed on consumer alert lists, and the word toxic started to stick. In the public mind, a plant once promoted as a garden ally became a hazard to avoid. Garden centers, already wary of liability, took the path of least resistance. Comfrey vanished from catalogs and nursery benches, not because it poisoned gardens, but because retailers didn't want to explain the difference between a banned supplement and a perfectly safe fertilizer plant. There were no laws against growing Comfrey, no fines for using its leaves on tomatoes. Still, the effect was chilling. A plant that had been a quiet favorite of organic growers was suddenly radioactive in the eyes of the mainstream market. The science behind the scare is real. Pyrrolizidine alkaloids are dangerous when ingested in quantity, especially from roots or concentrated extracts. But in the soil, those same compounds are broken down by microbes and diluted by the environment. No regulatory agency has ever banned Comfrey as a fertilizer, and there's no evidence that using it as mulch or compost poses a risk to people or crops. The real casualty was reputation. Comfrey's fall from grace had less to do with what it did in the garden and more to do with a wave of regulatory fear that swept away nuance. For years, the plant survived only among die-hard organic gardeners and permaculture circles, quietly passed along as root cuttings and word-of-mouth advice. The rest of the gardening world moved on, leaving the soil's old ally in the shadows. Chop and drop is the simplest way to turn Comfrey's power into results. Grab a handful of those thick, bristly leaves, cut them at the base, and lay them right at the feet of your tomatoes, peppers, or berry bushes. No digging, no mixing, just drop the leaves and walk away. Within 48 hours, the green pile melts into the soil, releasing a flush of potassium and nitrogen exactly where fruiting plants need it most. The low fiber means the breakdown is almost instant. No waiting weeks for compost. No worry about nitrogen lockup. Every cut, every drop feeds the soil life and the roots below. For a liquid boost, there's the infamous Comfrey tea. Stuff a bucket with fresh leaves, add water, and let it ferment for a week or two. The result is a dark, foul-smelling brew that outperforms most store-bought feeds. Tests peg its NPK at roughly 2, 1, 3, stronger in potassium than many chemical tomato fertilizers. But brewed from your own patch. Dilute it, pour it at the base of fruiting crops, and watch the difference in flower set and fruit size. Comfrey doesn't ask for replanting or annual fertilizer. Plant it once, and for 20 years or more, you have a living fertilizer factory. No trips to the garden center, no ongoing cost, just a cycle of cutting, dropping, and watching the soil grow richer every season. This is lazy abundance, a perennial loop that turns a single plant into infinite fertility, with almost no effort beyond the occasional harvest. A veteran permaculture designer in the UK stands among his Comfrey patch, roots deep in the same soil for over 15 years. Each spring, the plants surge back with no coaxing, producing up to 5 heavy harvests a season. He runs his hand through the thick leaves, recalling the early years when every bag of fertilizer was an expense. Today, he calculates that his small orchard saves nearly 2,000 pounds over a decade. 12 bags of commercial fertilizer replaced every year by a cycle of cutting and dropping. Comfrey. The dark, crumbly soil beneath his trees tells its own story. Richer, looser, and alive with earthworms. This isn't theory. It's a perennial dividend, year after year. In a city 100 miles away, an urban gardener fills a bucket with comfrey leaves, bracing for the notorious smell. She grows tomatoes on a concrete balcony, but the routine is simple. Chop the leaves, drop them around the pots, and let them melt into the soil. For a liquid boost, she ferments comfrey tea, strong enough to outpace most blue powders at the garden center. Her fertilizer bill has dropped by 70%, and her plants show it. Each season, she counts on comfrey's potassium to push out clusters of fruit. No synthetic feed required. At a community garden, a soil scientist unpacks the numbers. He explains that comfrey leaves, used as mulch or tea, contain less than 1/10 of the pyrrolizidine alkaloids found in the roots. Microbes in the soil break these down rapidly. No evidence links comfrey mulch to toxins in harvests, and the environmental savings are real. A single comfrey patch can cut nearly a ton of carbon dioxide emissions over its lifetime compared to synthetic fertilizer. For modern growers, planting comfrey isn't nostalgia, it's rebellion. It's the choice to feed the soil, not the supply chain. Right now, fertilizer prices hit record highs while soil health declines worldwide. One plant, buried by fear and convenience, offers a proven path to self-renewing abundance. No store-bought inputs required. As global demand for sustainable food grows, the question isn't whether comfrey can change our future. It's whether we'll let old narratives keep us from planting it. What would you risk to grow freedom from the ground up?